Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 26th of November. Today we have some interesting updates, so let's start. First we're going to start with the Kupiansk-Liman front line from this area. Today we have a lot of updates from this area. The Ukrainians, as we discussed yesterday, as far as I understand, managed to return control over Novosilovska, or maybe they were pushed and forced to step back, not from the entire, but just from the east part of this town. But for now, the Ukrainians are still there. There are very heavy clashes in this town. The Russians, from their side, started their own storm operation in this area. And this is the focal point. And as we discussed yesterday, if the Russians are able to take control over this town, they will be able to establish entire control over the area between the railroad and the river Zherebets, this one. And of course, it will reduce the Ukrainian chances to develop their offensive operation in the direction of Svatovo. We see that Ukrainians don't have enough of power, enough of, will or enough of pressure to force the Russians to step back, but from the other side they are not planning to give up. So this is the main town, this is the main area, and I believe that the battle for Kuzyumovka, Krivosheivka and Kalimychiha fortification area will determine the destiny of Svatovo and the entire Svatovo offensive operation. If we take a look at the Western sources map, you see that there are a lot of icons in this area. The Russians reported that yesterday they entered Novosilovska, this town, but I wasn't sure that they would stay there. And today they reported that they managed to repulse the Ukrainians' attack in direction of Novosilovska and in direction of Kalimychiha from Mesazharovka, Stelmakhovka. So this is the Ukrainian position, Stelmakhovka, Mesazharovka, and Kalimychiha is the Russian position. They have their fortification there, very nice position, and they attacked the Ukrainians there. Their attack orders and so on, and the same situation in the north. So, as you can see, the Russians keep their position very strong, and for now they don't have any problems. But if we're talking about the Western sources, the Ukrainian army, the Russians are saying that they calculated a very powerful attack phased in Kharkiv area. A lot of forces, a lot of soldiers were deployed in town. These guys, I believe that almost every single town in Kharkiv has like the soldiers from Ukrainian soldiers, and more sources are saying that the Ukrainians are planning to attack in direction of Svatovo and to complete this mission, to complete this situation, and then they will be able to develop their offensive operation in direction of Starobelsk. Or maybe they're there just for one reason: they expect the end of the Russian deployment process, and after that they will make a decision what to do next. If we're talking about more things about the separation of, let's say, Novosilovska battle, Novosilovska offensive operation. As you can see, the Ukrainians still tries to cross this railroad station. They did this previous weeks, but all the attempts failed. All the attempts were repulsed by the Russians. Now they're attacking the south from Stelmakhovka, direction Kalimychiha, but all those attacks were repulsed as well. And to tell the truth, I believe that the best solution for the Ukrainians in this case would be to try their luck a little bit to the north, somewhere between Volodymyrovka and Kuzyumovka on this defense line. So, of course, in this case, they will have to spend more time, but at least from Krakhmalna, if they will try their luck and to attack somewhere between these two forces in the middle area, I believe they have more chances to achieve some success. And the only thing they need is to cross this railroad and to establish some bridgehead. And furthermore, if they're able to do this a little bit to the north, there is lakes in the south, some kind of barrier, there is a forest in the south, there is a road that connects Volodymyrovka and let's say Kuzyumovka. So at least by attacking in this area, they will be able to cut the road and then try to develop their offensive operation in direction of Volodymyrovka. And this checkpoint, this town, this Russian position is located very far from the mainland. As you can see, Volodymyrovka is not connected with the eastern back with just local roads that have very bad quality, so supply and support of this area is not on the very high level, and another road goes from Kuzyumovka. So I believe that if the Ukrainians want to achieve some success, they need to focus their attack a little bit to the north, and it will give them more progress than to attack in direction of Kuzyumovka, Novoselovska. Furthermore, if they attack in direction of Vladimirovka, and if they take control over this area, they will be able to split this area in two parts, because there is another river, Red River, or Kobylyanka, another river, and the Russians won't be able to support a lot of towns in the north, so they will be able to take a lot of ground. Maybe this is a solution for them. Furthermore, taking Vladimirovka will open the Ukrainians a window to send their commandos and scouts on this side of the river and start their some movements and some progress and some operation near this big town, very important fortification, Nizhnya Duvanka. So this is my understanding of the situation, but I believe that Ukrainians on the ground have better idea what to do. If we're talking about the losses, the Russians reported that during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians lost around 30 soldiers and something around 4 armored vehicles on this front line. The same story as we heard yesterday, the day before yesterday. The Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of Kalimychych, in direction of Plashanka. Kalimychych we just discussed, in direction of Plashanka, trying to take control over this town, trying to cut the road or this cross, this very important cross, as you can see. Let's move back to Plashanka. This is our Plashanka, and the Ukrainians tries to take control over this cross. So this cross is very important. The Ukrainians, the Russians used this cross to connect a lot of towns like Krasnorechenska and like the most important Kremenaya. And as you can see, if we take a look at Kremenaya, there is a road that moves to the north, and this road stops somewhere at Novokrasnyanka, this small town, and after that the road moves to nowhere. So there is a lot of local roads through the forest, but I believe, and of course the Russians use this road, but the best solution for the Russian is to use the road R66 to the north to this cross, and after that to turn to the right to Krasnorechenska. So the best solution to have communication and so on. So if the Ukrainians are able to take control over this cross, of course, with this attack, with this operation, they will be able to reduce the logistic of the Russians on this front line. And the Ukrainians, were trying to attack from Makiivka in direction of Plashanka, but the Russians still control this area. There are a lot of forests, there is some water barriers and so on. So for now, the Russians hold their position and they're not planning to give up. And as a result of clashes during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians lost around 40 soldiers and something around 5 armored vehicles. But and this is all about the Kremenaya Liman front line, but I'll remind you one more time, the Ukrainians collected a lot of forces in this area, and more Russian military experts expect that Ukrainians are going to start their grand counter-offensive operation maybe this week, because the weather is very bad. The weather is cold, there is a minus in this area, so it gives possibility for the Ukrainians to use their heavy tanks, heavy armored vehicles to start their operation on the north. Now we are moving to the Bakhmut front line. Today we got a lot of changes, a lot of interesting updates from this area. And let's take a look at the Russian sources map. First of all, the Russians reported that Ukrainians were attacking, made a few attempts of counteroffensive operation in direction of Bilogorovka, the South Bilogorovka, this one. This town, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got report that the Russians managed to enter the south part of this town, but I believe that some part of this village with this forest is controlled by the Ukrainian, and just the southeast part is controlled by the Russians. So the Ukrainians made an attack of the Russian, trying to force them to step back, but their attack were repulsed. Another counter-offensive operation from the Ukrainian side was somewhere in the vicinity of Yakovlivka. That attack was repulsed as well. And now we are moving to Bakhmut, and to be more precise, we are moving to the south area of Bakhmut. This is the area. And today the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that the Ukrainians made another attempt to attack the Russians in direction somewhere in the vicinity of Klishchevka in this area. I believe that this icon put there softly, but anyway, this shows the real situation. that the Russians are very close to this town. All these three attacks, like in near Klishchevka, Yakovlivka, and Blagorovka, were repulsed, and Ukraine lost around 70 soldiers, something around 5 armored vehicles. But the most important updates are coming from the town by the name of Kurdyumovka, this one. And today we got the first update from the Russians that they have entered this town, and that these days they're doing some kind of clearing operation, and they promise that maybe in the next few days they will be able not just to establish control over Kurdyumovka, but they're promised that they will clear Azaryanovka and Zelenopolye from the Ukrainians. Let's move to the Western sources map. These are area Kurdyumovka, Zelenopolye, Zaryanovka. So, according to the Russian sources, according to this first confirmation, the Russians are saying that they establish some control over this town, over this fortification area, and the next days they are planning to complete the clearing operation of this fortification, and after that the Russians, I believe, they will try to complete the situation with Andreevka and of course with Klishchevka, with these two towns, and after that it might bring a lot of problems for the Ukrainians, because Kurdyumovka, Zaryanovka is the areas, the towns that were under responsibility of the Ukrainian mechanized brigades, these three mechanized brigades in this area, 53rd, 62nd, and 30th mechanized. And I believe that we discussed a lot, many times, that this brigade had a lot of losses during the previous weeks, and I believe that front line has been collapsed. And if the Ukrainians will be forced to step back, of course, the Russians will be able to start their development in direction of Danilovka and, of course, Belogor. And this is going to be completely different story. The only thing the Russians need is to establish, let's say, a stable bridgehead in this area. And from that very moment, the Russians will be able to control everything in this front line. The road between Konstantinovka, Chasiv Yar, the road between Chasiv Yar, Bakhmut, the road between Konstantinovka and the New York Toretsk agglomeration. So this is a very important town, and the losing of Kurdyumovka is significant success from the Russians. Furthermore, with this bridgehead with Kurdyumovka and Azaryanovka, the Russians will be able to solve another problem they have and they had since the 2014. If we take a look at this map, you're gonna see that through these towns like Kurdyumovka, Zaryanovka, there is a small water reservoir, small water channel, that pipeline that moves. This is the water pipeline that moves, and it ends somewhere here, but it is not ended, but it moves to some kind of energy pipelines, engineering pipelines. And I tried to analyze the movements of these pipelines, and I saw and I mentioned that these pipelines moves to Donetsk, and I heard before that the Russians need to take control over this area. It's like a vital question for them. And the thing is that Donetsk, the capital of DPR, gets water from this pipeline, from this water channel, from this water reservoir, and with help of this, the Russians will be able to solve their main problem of winter. They will be able to get as much as possible water to this town, and the Donetsk citizens won't have any problems with hot water, with water at all during the winter period. And we can't say the same thing about the Ukraine, about the Ukrainians and the territory of Ukraine. So this is very important fortification, not just because of the fact that this fortification area opens the Russians the door to attack, to develop their offensive operation or bridgehead in direction of Konstantinovka. Furthermore, this area solves the Russians' issue and problems with supply and support of Donetsk People Republic with water. And this is very important. As always, it's very important to support civilians with water. Now, if we're talking about South Donetsk area, as you can see, there are also a lot of icons. The Ukrainians made at least three attempts three counteroffensive attempts, and they were trying to attack the Russians in the vicinity of Novomikhailivka, Nikolska, and Vremivka tactical bridgehead. All those attacks were repulsed by the Russians. The Russians reported that as a result of those clashes, the Ukraine lost around 40 soldiers and something around 8 armored vehicles. If we are talking about Novomikhailivka and Nikolska, we understand the situation. We discussed the situation many times. We know exactly what the Russians want. But more and more questions, more and more updates are coming from this bridgehead. Yesterday, the Ukrainians were trying to attack in the direction of Novodarivka. Today, Vremivka tactical bridgehead. Furthermore, the day before, there were a lot of clashes around Novodonetska, Novomayorska. So the Ukrainians try to understand the Russians in this area, their weak and their powerful sides, and maybe they're trying to prepare some plans for the future, maybe for the next year. What are they planning to do in this situation? Today there was another prisoner exchange, 9 for 9. Every single day we receive more updates, more news about this piece of news about this. So this is a very, of course, good situation when the prisoners return to their home, to their families, and so on. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your like, join my Patreon. Have a good day. Bye bye.